I try not to kind of get lost in other people's amazing brilliance and think, oh gosh, why is my book not like that? Or can it ever be like that? Or whatever.
Hello and welcome to The Conversation with your host, Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you've had a good week. Can you believe we're already in December? Yes, we're in December and some of you have already put up your Christmas trees. I'm not going to say much about that except to say it's a little bit too early. Mine will go up 12 days before Christmas and we're going to leave it at that. But yeah, we're in December. This is my 96th conversation, which means I'm trying to do the maths, either at the end of the year or the beginning of 2025, it will be episode 100, which is going to be absolutely amazing. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you. Honestly, thank you, because I can see the numbers. You can't see the numbers, but I can see the numbers. And it's been really nice to see how the podcast has been growing. The downloads and the listener numbers have increased. People are supporting me on Ko-fi by buying me a cup of coffee. So I really, really appreciate it, because I'm not exaggerating when I say without your support, this podcast would not continue, because it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work. However, I enjoy talking to all of my guests, so it makes all of the hard work that happens once the conversation is over, it makes all of that hard work worth it. And I can't wait for 2025, because there's even more amazing guests for you to listen to. So thank you for your support again. If you'd like to support me by buying me a cup of coffee, the link is in the show notes. And I'm going to get on with the show. So in episode 96, I'm in conversation with author Louise Minchin. And if the name sounds familiar, that's because she spent 20 years on the BBC Breakfast Red Sofa. And in our conversation, Louise and I talk about how it really feels to start a new writing career after a long career in journalism, how not to get lost in other people's brilliance when you're a debut writer, and how her experience on I'm a Celebrity inspired her debut novel, Isolation Island. Now, as always, sit back or go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Louise Minchin, welcome to The Conversation.
It's an absolute joy to be here, because I've listened to conversations and I think they're brilliant. And also not just brilliant, they're fun, but they're really helpful, because I think there's so much about the publishing industry that are unknowns. And honestly, there's so much I've learned from your podcast. Thank you.
Oh, wow, that is amazing to hear, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, because you had such a long career in television and as a journalist. Does it feel strange to be like a debut, to be starting again in this new career?
Yes, it absolutely does. It feels so. First of all, I did write. So I wrote back in, I think it's 2018, and I'm looking over there to see my book as if it could tell me. It's called Dare to Try, and it's all about my triathlon journey. So I think that came out in 2018. So that was non-fiction. And then I always wanted to write fiction. And that's why when somebody asked me to write non-fiction, I was like, I would absolutely love to do that, because I think if you're going to write, you need to write. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? But it's that to me seemed the best thing to do. And so when I did that, that was obviously about my triathlon journey, and it was non-fiction. So it was all stuff I knew, stuff that I'd done. And that in itself felt pretty scary. I then wrote another non-fiction book called Fearless Adventures with Extraordinary Women, which came out last year. And then finally got to the thing I really, really, really wanted to do, which was write fiction, write a thriller. And yeah, it's super scary, because I learned so much during those journeys with Dare to Try, etc., which has really, really helped. But yeah, stepping into that world, which is occupied by amazing authors like you, and I've made lots of friends now in the sort of crime writing community, because they are incredibly. I love you all, by the way, and you're very welcoming. But it doesn't mean to say that it's not scary being the new person on the block, and also being pretty clueless about lots of things, which I'm learning along the way. But yeah, it's definitely putting myself out there in a way that I've obviously I used to present breakfast in front of 6 million people, and that's scary in its own way. But, you get used to what you do, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, just think, I always used to watch you on BBC Breakfast. And when when you're experienced in your own profession and you've been doing it
like
for
you
years,
are.
it's the same. Yeah, it's like the same way I feel about law. It's like I know law, I know the courts that I can walk into a courtroom, and there's always that initial stage where, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But you learn and you become proficient in what you're doing. But when you enter into a completely new arena and you're watching everyone else around you, it can't help but feel intimidating.
Yeah, and that's how I do feel. And also, obviously I read all of you extensively as well. So, I mean, that kind of helps because, but it also doesn't help because you just go, oh my gosh, that's utterly brilliant. How have they come up with that? And what a brilliant twist and all the rest of it. But yeah, no, it's definitely, but I've been, so Isolation Island has been out now. Gosh, it feels like a really long time, but it's not actually. It's
But
only
it's not
since
that long.
September.
Yeah.
No, it's not, is it?
It's not long at all. No.
Gosh, that's a real leveler actually, because also you I think it's very easy, and I know people have talked about this on your podcast, to get swept up in other people's numbers, and they've sold, they've been on the bestseller list, which I've not been on the Sunday Times bestseller list, and they've been signed for six-figure deals, and then I have to work out what that is and work out, oh no, I definitely haven't got one of them, and it's a very, I think it's really. I mean, you guys have all been so helpful about not, for example, reading the reviews. That's been super helpful. But also, it would be, I try not to kind of get lost in other people's amazing brilliance and think, oh gosh, why is my book not like that? Or can it ever be like that? Or whatever. It's hard, isn't it? It's like this sort of sea of information and people doing brilliantly. And you just think, oh, I would really love to do that. But obviously you need to write a really excellent book and things need to happen along the way that are out of your control. That's what I'm coming to, Nadine. It's out of my control.
It takes a while for you to get there to realize that it is out of your control, because you can't help when you're entering something new to, look at everyone else, because you have nothing else to compare it to. It's not like, well, I don't know, if you've got like a whole crew of people around you, or your friends or family are in the industry, then there's someone to feed back off. But when it's you alone entering into a new space, it's like you can't help but look at what's going on, but you have to tell yourself, no, I need to step back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to take lots of advice from you, by the way. Also, lots of things that are really different to me. Like, for example, I mentioned 6 million people. That is how many people, 6 to 6.5 million people used to watch me every day on BBC Breakfast. So big numbers are something that I'm kind of accustomed to, but big numbers, it's low. Imagine if 6 million people bought my book. I mean, that would be absolutely incredible. But you need to know that that is incredibly unlikely. And the figures in books, people are putting, my book is, I'm just going to check on the back, I think it's £20 exactly. It's hardback at the moment. And that's a lot of money. And, people have got to take a leap in a way that they're just switching on the telly and I'm there. I just happen to be there. It's not that they're making a kind of choice with their cash. And that again is a learning. And why should they read my book when there's loads of books out? There's so many brilliant books by authors who are absolutely fantastic. So why would they choose mine?
Because they feel like they know you, because they said there were 6 million people, including me, watching you every morning. I always say, like, at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was getting ready for work, I'm like, oh my God, I can barely see. But we're watching you. So it's like, well, of course, why?
You're not really, you're just making a cup of tea, listening.
I was making my tea and my toast and waiting for the weather. That's what I was waiting for. But I suppose they feel as if they know you.
Well, I hope you knew. Yeah. But I mean, also to think that, yes, that is definitely, and that's definitely, of course, the case. But, to think that 6 million transfers into any similar numbers is just like, that's just not true. And if you know the truth about novels and etc., and you do the actual figures, I mean, what is it? The average novel sells, I think, 5,000 in its whole lifetime.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, the numbers are really low for like everything. Because I was like on my Substack, I was talking about book piracy, and also, and then the average income of authors came into play. And like the average income for authors is £7,000 a year.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Below, and the minimum wage is, I think it's 23,000 a year. So you're earning, for most authors, they're earning less than minimum wage, which is crazy. And then I suppose you would like to think that if you put all your followers together, so like your followers on Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram, that would equate into numbers, which would be amazing in terms of book sales, and that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. Oh, anyway, but it's, I mean, it's really, really exciting. It's what I wanted to do this for 25 years. There was a kind of moment when I decided that one day I would write a thriller. So, this is something I've always wanted to do, and I'm really delighted to have finally, after all those years, done it. And here's my book sitting on my right hand. It looks a bit damaged, this one. What have I done to it? Look,
it's been everywhere
damaged. With you. I need to get a new one.
What was it like though when you got that copy of Isolation Island in your hand in comparison to your non-fiction stuff?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, they always say don't judge a book by its cover, but I genuinely want everybody to judge this book by its cover. Because what can I tell you about it? Well, it says Isolation Island, but it's got, so in the story there, it's a reality TV show. 10 celebrities go to an isolated island off the northwest coast of Scotland. And there is going to be, and very, Agatha Christie-esque, and then there's a massive storm on the way, once in a 100-year storm. And you know what's going to happen. They're going to get cut off. And it being a thriller, it's going to end badly, probably for somebody. But what I love about, oh my gosh, when I got the cover was, you spend a lot of time talking to Hachette, Headline, who are my publishers, about it. And then you've got this brilliant designer who goes away and thinks about it. And she has done just such a fabulous job.
She's done a brilliant job with yours.
Hasn't she? And that we did go through various iterations, and that was amazing to be able to have discussions about the island. But it's a monastery that they're going to live in. It's a derelict monastery, as you can clearly see on the cover, as you can see through the arches that it's not all together, is it? It's got a wonderful sunset, and then the water, and it's got the sort of waterline across it under the isolation and above the island, which gives you a little bit. You I don't know if you've read it, Nadine. Have you read it?
I have. I'm reading. I haven't finished it, but look, so I've got.
I'm not testing. I'm not testing you.
No, give me like what happened on page 48. Well,
but the water is, I love water, and the water is definitely a really important part. But you just get it, and you just think, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This has been, it's been such a long time in the making, and it sounds so silly, but to have the physical copy and to feel, the first thing I just was like touching, going, oh my gosh, it's embossed. It's bumpy. That's amazing. My name is embossed. Anyway, it's just
things are important though.
Yeah, they're so important. And then I didn't, like the other day, I hadn't opened, so that obviously hard copies, and I'm so lucky to have a hard copy. And they have the paper, the jacket on the outside, don't they? Until the other day, I hadn't opened it up to see what my name looked like on the inside. And there are all these brilliant sort of surprises that you go through. It's in black, and again, it looks incredible. So it's an amazing feeling to have it like that.
You know what, when I got, I think it was the Jigsaw Man, the first one, when I got the hard copy, and when I was younger, I was always the person, I would immediately take the jacket off the hard covers because I want to see what it looks like. And I didn't do that with my own book. And then I think it was like months later, until I think I saw someone on Instagram did it, and I was like, why have I not done that with my own book? I would have done that with everyone else's book because I want to see what the hardcover actually looks like. And it was amazing. I think my name was in gold.
Yeah, mine's in black and white, and it looks kind of like really. Let's have a look at it. Yeah, so it's so, isn't that so weird? So I did exactly the same. I normally take them off because I want to protect the jacket. Actually, that's why I do it. So if I'm reading, I take the jacket off so I don't damage it like I've clearly damaged my own. But that's so weird that we both did the same thing, and there it is in black and white. It looks kind of masculine and strong, doesn't it?
We have to find a way to show this to the people.
I don't know how we're going to show it. But anyway, never mind. Never mind. You can go buy the book and have a look.
Yeah, go buy the book and have a look. But when you came up with the idea for Isolation Island, did you? You said you wanted to write for like 25 years. Did you come up with the idea after you did I'm a Celebrity, or had it been brewing around before I'm a Celebrity? I didn't even think I was going to ask you about I'm a Celebrity, but I completely forgot you did it.
Oh, yeah.
Until I was like, she was on there. I forgot.
And it's on as we speak. I haven't watched it this year. I've been traveling a bit. So there's a kind of two-pronged answer to that. So first of all, my main character, who's called Lauren, she's an investigative journalist. She's in her sort of early 30s, and she does some brilliant sort of undercover investigations, much more, what would I say? I kind of, because I sat on the sofa and interviewed people. I didn't go undercover.
Yeah.
So she's a much kind of braver journalist than I ever was. So she had been with me for a long time, ever since I moved up with BBC Breakfast to Media City in Salford. So maybe 12 years or something. I was like, I want to write. Yeah, like long time. How mad is that?
Wow.
I know. And I'd wanted to write a book with her at the centre of it because I wanted, you always have a sort of detective in a book or an investigator, and I wanted her to be the investigator. So from a kind of journalist point of view. And I was going to set her, and I'd done a sort of proposal before I went into I'm a Celebrity, setting her in a northern newsroom, going undercover, and started the beginning of the story, etc. And that was going quite well, actually. And then I went on I'm a Celebrity in 2021, and in Wales, because it was during COVID. And if you remember, if anybody listening remembers I'm a Celebrity that year, this might remind you actually about it. There was a once in 100-year storm called Storm Arwen, which ripped off the roofs of all the production galleries and studios. And it was a really big storm. It caused a lot of damage, really serious damage, including taking I'm a Celebrity off air for the first time in its whole history. And we were in the castle at the time, and we had this very dramatic night, and you can feel echoes of it essentially in Isolation Island when that storm comes to hit celebrities. That's very much written from my own kind of visceral point of view. And we had a very dramatic night. It was really scary, all the doors crashing and things falling down, and we were sort of losing contact with the production team because they were essentially about a mile and a half away from us, and there was only a security guard with us. I don't know actually how many security guards, maybe a couple, near the castle. And then we got the next day, obviously, that everything had gone wrong, and we got taken away from the castle in taxis on our own and sent off into the middle of Wales. I didn't know where to, and I didn't know how long for, and I didn't have a phone, and it was all really quite scary. And I remember being driven away from the castle in this rain and seeing all these trees that had come down, and just thought, oh, hang on a second. Hang on. Lauren could go into a reality show that is massively disrupted by a storm. That is where she's going to go, and sort of undercover. She's being her own person. She's in that reality show because when you're looking at those shows, and the reason I was invited on I'm a Celebrity is they need a narrator, don't they? So they often cast someone in that role, and Lauren has enough of a profile that that's why she's put in the show, but she's actually going in really undercover. Nobody knows why. She says yes because she's been asked, but nobody knows, apart from her, the reason why she said yes.
It's amazing how your writer brain works, how you can look at things, so you're looking at a story, you're looking at this new environment, and you're not thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen to me next? How am I going to get in contact with people? You're thinking, I could use this somehow in a book. Because the same thing happened to me when I came back from Grenada, and I'd been there when the hurricane had hit. And I was in Harrogate, and we had agent drinks, and my agent hadn't seen me since I'd been back. And he's like, how are you? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I was telling him about what the hurricane experience was like. And then the next question was like, so you're going to use this in a book? And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course I'm going to. It's like, it's such a unique experience. I mean, it was terrifying, but it's so unique. But your brain automatically is thinking, how can I incorporate this into a story? And also match it with characters. Because like sometimes you've got the character and the character's just waiting to come along and, for you to do something with them. And then you find Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren had just been sitting there waiting, and, and then suddenly, it was a really extraordinary moment. And I think helped by the fact that when I went, and I can't remember the books, I'm trying to see if they're there. So I wasn't allowed I think we were out of the castle for 3 days, and we were not allowed any contact with the outside world. It's still
at all.
And I was completely on my own. There was a security guard with me who wouldn't talk to me outside. I was in this sort of little Airbnb, which was lovely, by the way, and really warm. Oh my gosh, it was so warm. The first thing I did was have a really deep bath because I was so cold and so filthy. But I said to we were allowed to have books, and I said to the runner who went to, we had some food and some books, and I said, just get me some thrillers. And they were like, which ones? I was like, I don't know, just go to the supermarket and get me 3 thrillers. And they brought me back, and that's what I did over those 3 days. So I really immersed myself in the world. And I just can't remember because it was a really odd time. I'm trying to look on my shelf to see if they're there. But I think there was one by Claire Douglas, I think. But yeah, so that I really got in the zone and went back into I'm a Celebrity in that thriller zone.
I think that's amazing. You wasn't thinking about survival in a weird way. It was just, this is all material.
Yeah.
You know what? Because I always find, because I'm always thinking about character. And I always say, when people ask me about, they would always ask me if I'd use any of my old clients. Like,
obviously, yes, I've heard people ask you that.
Yeah, I've used it. I always use bits of them. But I always say I met so many different people that you're very much aware of how characters are formed and what influences people and what motivates them. I'm not asking you to name anybody and I'm a celebrity, or even just people you interviewed on the sofa. Did you find that interviewing all those people, meeting those different characters helps you form characters?
I think it's very interesting because obviously people want to say, would love me to say, oh yeah, this person is that person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But actually what I found was that I knew more or less, I probably knew 8 out of the 10 characters really early on. A couple of them changed, but they are not people I met. They're not people I know. They are very much them. They are their own selves. And you'll know that the characters really changed quite a lot in the writing of them. So of course they're probably influenced by places I've been, and also I also wanted to play with really clearly the kind of 2 genres. So first of all, it's a locked room drama in the kind of really traditional sense, isn't it? But also the reality TV. You know, they come with a playbook, those reality TV shows, don't they? You know you're going to get some sports stars. You know you're going to get, you know, whatever. You kind of know what you're going to get, don't you, at the beginning? So I wanted to put my own spin on that. And I think, for example, my Instagrammers, Holly and Tazy, I'd never seen. I'm absolutely fascinated by. I mean, they're not even Instagrammers, are they? They're social media stars. But I love watching. I love watching pairs. I love watching. You know, when you see either a friendship or a marriage or a partnership, I'm really fascinated by watching those relationships. And I've got 2 girls, so they have, you know, they're probably more influenced by them in some ways. But yeah, so they morph, but they are not people that I know. They're not even inspired really by people I know, except for maybe one. Which is a lovely rugby player who's Mac, who I love.
In the beginning, in the boat, when he's the one who's like...
he's the big wimp, isn't he?
No, I was reading it and it made me laugh so much because, you know, you have these... I always feel the same way about clients, which I learned very early on, like, don't make assumptions about people. So I remember, you know, I assumed a person was going to be a certain way because they'd been charged of a certain offence. And then when I met them, I always talk about this woman who'd been... arrested for being in possession of firearms, and in my head I had her in my head as like a proper gangster's mold. And then when I met her in Stoke Newington police station, she looked like my granny.
Yeah, you remember? I've heard you talk about the granny.
Yeah, she looks like my granny, and I was just thought, it doesn't fit. So when I was reading the scene with Matt in the boat, and you have the image of like, well, it's this big, massive rugby player. Obviously, he can handle anything, and he's just there in bits about to pass out in the boat.
Oh, I had such fun with them. I mean, I really did. And then the whole thing about writing non-fiction to fiction is, and I used to speak to authors like you because I was really lucky. I interviewed loads of authors on BBC Breakfast, and I'd speak to authors and they go, yes, well, my characters do things I don't expect and all those things. And I honestly would look at them and think that this just cannot be true. But it becomes true. It's so strange, isn't it? But I think there's a real moment to kind of, and I hope this can happen to me again in my life, and there's absolutely no guarantee it will. There's a really important scene, which is actually in the middle of the book, and you'll know the one I'm talking about if you've read it. And it's between two of my main characters. And I wrote that scene literally on 2 days before my final deadline. My editor, my lovely editor, Lucy, at Headline had said to me, Louise, we need one more scene between these 2 characters. And I knew she was right. I absolutely knew she was right. But I just couldn't see it. I couldn't find it. And I was really, really struggling with it. And I just went through one more read through, and it was a question of Lauren, that's a clue, turning left, not right. And then she went into the room with another character who I won't say who it is. And because at that stage I'd written them for so long and they'd been living in my head for so long, all I needed to do was put them in the room. And then, it's like, your friends, don't you? If you put them in a situation, you can guess how things are going to kick off. And it just kicked off massively. And I just literally had to sit back and write down as it was kicking off. So that was gold for me. And I don't, I hope that can happen. I don't know if that will ever happen again to me.
It probably will happen because it's sort of said it's those moments you're kind of forced into a situation because like me, I'm doing my edits right now and I'm looking at my editor's comments and sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? How am I supposed to make that work? And literally before we started the interview, I'm doing my edits and I'm looking at this paragraph and I'm thinking, I don't know how to make it work or how to change it for me to get the effect that I want. And I walked away and it was all about changing my perspective. And instead of sitting down looking at it, I was standing up looking down. And it's when I looked down, I was like, oh, I don't need this. And I can do, and I was literally just moving things around. It's like I had to take a bird's eye view of it.
Yeah. It's so strange, isn't it? I had one when I just kind of locked myself into a dead end and with one particular scene, one character particularly, and I just couldn't see a way through. And and then I just changed location, and then by the time I got to the next play, I was drove from. I just did a drop. I had to do it anyway. I was in Cornwall. I had to come back home, and by the time I got back home, I had forgotten that it was a problem. I think your brain does stuff, doesn't it? Without, like, lots of the ideas come to me in the middle of the night and stuff. Your brain is working on stuff, even though when you're not consciously working on it as well.
That's all. That's when you normally get the solutions, when you're standing in front of the sink, looking out at the garden. I'm like, oh, that's what I should have done. And this is how this character would react.
So is that an excuse for procrastination? You're going to give me an excuse to go and do washing up instead of writing
Don't wash up. Well, you'll do anything. You'll find anything random it doesn't even need to be doing. And you're going to. This may sound like a weird question, considering that you work in journalism and you've written non-fiction. But when did you know that you could write fiction and tell stories? Because it's a different kind of storytelling.
I don't know. I just had a feeling about Isolation Island because, it didn't, don't think this just happened just like that. I took it to lots of different publishers and we had lots of no's, which was really good.
Really?
Thinking, yeah.
So people would just think no, because you're Louise Minchin, used to be on BBC Breakfast and we know you. Like, you wouldn't think that people would say no to you.
Absolutely. Well, and rightly so. Yeah. But I just had this gut feeling. I was like, I know this is a good idea. I know I can do this. When did I know I could write? I think for me, actually, it was when I'd written Fearless, Adventures with Extraordinary Women, which is all about women breaking barriers in sport. And in every chapter, I went to go and interview a different incredible woman about the sport that they loved. And there's a particular chapter in there, and it's about free diving under ice in Finland with this amazing woman called Kath Pendleton, who's an ice swimmer.
I'm like, no,
not me. Okay, so I think I realised that I could write and make people engage with my writing when I was being interviewed about that. And this very seasoned journalist, male journalist, who is a really brilliant journalist, said to me, Louise, you've been giving me anxiety dreams. What? He said, that free diving under ice, honestly, it's terrified me. And I just never, until that point, thought, oh, okay, I can write. I can make people. I didn't even realize in that chapter that it was scary and that people would be like literally physically kind of engaged with my writing. At that point, I thought, okay, maybe I can write.
It's weird. I'm just thinking, obviously it is. It's a different skill set to interviewing someone and presenting someone's story that way, orally, in comparison to doing it on the page.
Yeah, it is. And I particularly like when I'm writing, I think hopefully in Isolation Island, you will feel immersed. So I'm all about how things feel, how they smell, how it makes you feel. So I'm going back to that, the free diving under ice. You know, people, they feel like they've been under the ice and they felt that claustrophobia. So yeah, it is completely different. But that, for me, the kind of really tactile writing is not something that I used to do, obviously on the news, etc. But that for me is where I find magic, and I particularly enjoyed that type of writing. And then also, you know, I think hopefully Isolation Island feels like a bit of a roller coaster. It's a bit of an adventure. You know, I like being on adventures. So that's the kind of writing that I never obviously got to do on BBC Breakfast. It was all very one-dimensional in some ways.
It's just so interesting, because I think because of my other job, and I'd always say to the baby lawyers, like, we are
the
always
baby lawyers.
Yeah, the baby lawyers, as I called it. I always think I need to stop calling them baby lawyers, but they're the baby lawyers. But I always say to them, when you're doing closing speeches, even when you're telling a story to the jury, and you want them to stick with you and follow you and go through those ups and downs, and also be invested, but also believe in what you're saying. Also, and that's what you want to do as writers. You want the reader to pick up the book and believe that they're there and be invested with all the characters and follow you right through to the last page.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that all I can say on BBC Breakfast was that, I mean, in the writing, you know, I could tell you the headline from Isolation Island. You said to me, so my writing was obviously like, I used to be really good. So, well, occasionally, and my colleagues might disagree with me, but my previous colleagues writing a 10-word headline. And obviously, you know, 10 words and 90,000 words is a massive difference. But actually, every sentence is the same, isn't it? You've got to invest in it, and I don't know, just like capture that moment. You know, in those headlines, you've got to get the story right, haven't you?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And invest it with the right gravitas if it needs it, or kindness if it needs it, or whatever. So every single sentence in the book is probably similar to writing a headline, but obviously, you know, you add them all up together. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
But I love storytelling. You know, I love storytelling, and that's why, you know, I love on BBC Breakfast. The reason I became a journalist was I'm interested in, you know, what's happened, why it's happened, to who it's happened, and how it's impacted them. So stories for me have always been absolutely fundamental at what I'm interested in. Reading as well. I mean, I was an avid reader. I've got bookshelves. They're sort of bending the bookshelves in here from all the stuff I used to read from when I was young to now. But yeah, I'm at storytelling and trying to work out puzzles and all the rest of it. I guess that's why I went into journalism in the first place, to try and get to the bottom of things.
Yeah, I think there's a similarity, I think, between lawyers and journalists in that sense.
Oh,
I remember
you do really, you know, let's say you do really good work. But yeah, absolutely. But you go on, Nadine, tell me.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because when I was 16, and we had the careers advisor talk, and we had our one-on-one with the careers advisor, and she asked me what I wanted to do, and I said it's either journalism or law, and it was one of those two things. And then it's so silly, but she said to me, well, do you want to be outside waiting for the news in the rain, or do you want, I don't know why she said the rain, but she said, do you want to be outside in the rain waiting for the news, or do you want to be inside making the news? And I thought, in my mind, I'm thinking, I want to be dry. So that's probably why I said.
Is that what happened?
This was our conversation. I said, no, I think I'd rather be inside. I said, okay, I'll do the law. But it's that whole.
So you could have been outside making the news, or outside waiting for the news, or inside making the news.
Yeah,
I think you made a good choice.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a good choice. But I think it's that thing of I think for lawyers, I think especially criminal lawyers, you're trying to understand what motivates people, and you're always asking that how, what, why question, and you're trying, even if you're defending or prosecuting, you're trying to find the answer to that.
Trying to find the answer. That is exactly what I think. And that the stories that I found most difficult when I was on the news were the stories that we didn't know the ending. I think it's human nature, isn't it, to want to know the ending, and to want, not necessarily that it's okay, because clearly things are not always okay, particularly in the news. But for example, when Madeleine McCann went missing, I just, I just couldn't leave that story behind because we
Yeah.
never knew the ending. And I find so writing for me is about, and reading actually, because there's nothing worse than a book that doesn't kind of wrap things up, or you want to know the endings, don't you?
You do. You want it you want it to be concluded well. You don't want it to be just quickly wrapped up.
Fizzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't want it, I hate when you get to the book and you're like it makes all these promises in the beginning and you get to the end, you're like, well, is that it? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, that's all you've got. And you kind of feel you feel duped. You feel like you've been conned.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I know you haven't reached the ending, but be in contact when you have.
I will.
And I don't want to say too much. What I'll say is that I knew oh gosh, it's so difficult to do this without spoilers, but I think I can do it without spoilers. So I was really clear who was going to go in. I was really clear about the storm. I knew that they were going to go to monastery. It was going to be a derelict monastery. It would be a reality TV show, and producers would not be on the island with them. So that's when the crux comes, when the storms come. They are all on their own. And I knew who was going to die and why. And I thought I knew who killed them. But guess what?
It changed.
I didn't.
Yeah. But I think when you're writing, that's what happens. It happens with my second book.
Did
in
it?
The writing room. Yeah, I knew because I'm a planner, so I planned my book, and I knew who was going to be the killer. I knew who the killer was from day one.
Yeah, of course you did.
I'm like, it's person X. It's going to be this person.
Yeah,
and I was about and I got to it wasn't even. It was like halfway through the third act, and I was like, nah, it's not them. I'm going to change it. And I just knew. I'm like, it's not not them. But I didn't feel like, oh my God, I haven't stuck to the plan. I was like, oh no, this is going to work.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's exactly what happened to me. I think I'd actually written the ending, and then I realized that wasn't the ending at all.
You can go, but that's always the good thing. I feel like there's a freedom in knowing that you can always go back and change things, and you can make it, and the story will still work. I didn't have to change that much, because then I realized that all the interactions that Henley was having with this person, it kind of it did create that red herring sort of thing. So then you're forced to look back and go like, oh, so there's kind of little clues being laid in the conversation. So
true. I think I changed maybe a couple of sentences.
Yeah, it didn't have to be much. It didn't have to be much for it to work. Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. Can I ask you about the rejection thing? Because I just find that fascinating that you were saying that people were saying, because we always talk about rejection on the podcast, and I know I'll always say that it doesn't matter whether you've been published just once or you've been doing it for like 15, 20 years. Everyone's got a story of rejection in publishing, and you're surprised at the people who have said, I got told no, but they didn't want this book, even though they'd taken that book and that book had done really well. Was you surprised when I'm seeing publishers have said, we love you, Louise, but not this story?
No, I wasn't, because, again, going back to what we said right at the beginning, I'm new in this game. And also I think it's really, that is the reality, isn't it? That is the reality.
Yeah.
And I think what books need is they need the right people. They need the right place. And Lucy from Headline, when I talked to her, she got it. She got me, she got the story, and she was super excited about it. And she, worked really closely together on it. And that has been brilliant. So I think it's all a journey, and these are part of the journey. And of course, at the time you think, oh, that's really gutting. But actually, I've done enough things in my life, and particularly around sport, and failed enough times in my life to know that you just get on and try again. That's the only way to approach it, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. I always say, I said, failure is it's never the end. It forces you. It's not nice sometimes. You're like, I can't believe this happened. Especially when you've been.
I should have printed them all out, all the emails.
Well, I'm not saying you listen to some of the podcast episodes, and there's some authors, I can think of S.A. Cosby for one, and there's another one. They've got entire spreadsheets of the rejections. And I think it
they?
was Sean who said to me, yeah, and he goes, I got to 100. I was like, who? I'm like,
Wow.
you're on Barack Obama's list of authors. They've just optioned your books, and 100 people have told you no before
Oh,
that.
yeah. You
But you had
see,
it in a
it's
spreadsheet.
just. Did he? Oh, I can't be bothered with this spreadsheet.
No,
I
I'm
just
not a
carry
spreadsheet
on.
person.
No, also, yeah, it would just be I think that would help upsetting you, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Or maybe they can go, haha. Anyway, so yeah, no, I think it's part of the journey, isn't it? It's all a journey, and that's part of it.
Do you think that because I'm saying a celebrity and being, having your career on TV with 6 million people every morning eating their toast and drinking their coffee, watching you, do you think there's an expectation for you as an author? Or did you
Is
feel
there an
that?
actual? Yeah, I mean, I have to, you have to first up, I have to say that because I have done that, I'm sure I get advantages that other people don't. Yeah, people will bother to look at my proposal, even if they're rejecting it. Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's a massive advantage, isn't it? And yeah, I think there is. I think it absolutely is, and rightly so. But and it's again, this is a journey. This is something I want to do for a long time. So I've invested kind of heavily myself into it, and that's what I'll continue to do. And hopefully, what people judge me on is the book rather than the 6 million and the career before and all the rest of it. Hopefully, they judge me on that and go, "God, you know what? That was a really good thriller.
It's a really good. No,
and that's the other thing about the other thing about Let's Have More again is I spent 2 years, more than 2 years, doing this, right? And people read it in 2 days and go, "Really looking forward to the next one." Oh my gosh, have they any idea?
Were you surprised at how intense it can be, this writing process?
I was really surprised because I deal in really obviously deadlines, like 6 o'clock I need to be on air. And then also so many things around that. So the next day by 9:15 in the morning, we would get the figures from the night before. So essentially your sales figures less than 24 hours later, essentially, right? Yeah, 24 hours later. Which in publishing is not the case.
No.
And then also that whole thing about, so I sold the book 2 years pretty much to the day before it got published. Yeah, and that's pretty normal, isn't it? Having listened to your podcast a lot.
It is normal, 2 years. It's normal.
Yeah, 2 years, right? And that to me, when they said, "Oh yeah, you give it in, we want it in by," I think did they give it a year to give it in? Maybe they did. And then it won't be published till a year after that. And I just thought, what are they hanging around for? And it turns out we needed 2 years.
I had exactly the same reaction. I remember sitting there with my agent and we were talking, I can't remember what editor it was. And they said, okay, yeah. And they're like, okay, yeah, if you sign with us, so this would have been March 2019. And they're like, so you signed with us in March 2019, then we'll put your book out in 2021. And I was like, what do you mean 2021? Well, I've written it now. It's like, it's ready, as far as you're concerned, it's ready to go now. I don't need 2 years. But then you realize it is a process, and you may personally need the 2 years, but the publishers need the 2 years because you're not the only author there.
Do.
You are
but
in their queue.
Yeah, you're in their queue of marketing and publicity and finding the right date and all that stuff that I didn't know. All that stuff that I didn't know. And actually, and all the edits that you'll go through, the drafts, etc., with your editor, they made a massive difference. What I gave in September and what eventually we finished with in February, there was a lot of work between then September and February. A lot of work to be done. And really good work.
Yeah. Is it a different editing process in comparison to your nonfiction?
That's a really good question. Yeah, in non-fiction, it's much more hands-off. There really is much more hands-off. Absolutely, really. So with Fearless, for example, I had again a brilliant editor, and he chose. I think he chose. I might have suggested the order of the chapters, but he might have chosen the orders of the chapters. We had an argument about one chapter that he wanted to take out, and I argued it should stay in, and it did, by the way. And it's a really good chapter. It's a really good story from the women in it. And but it's much, much more hands-off. I would just get on with it, write it. And again, in that whole, just, not the level of editing.
I'm surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised at that. I thought
I don't know, because
it's
maybe,
done, yeah.
I don't know. I think because of course with a thriller, there's a lot around plot, isn't there, that needs to be right. And that nuance with characters, etc., that needs to be right. My characters they're not characters, they're real people in Fearless. So you can't, you know what I mean? You can't change it like you can in a novel.
So I was going to ask you about doing triathlons, which I think whenever I see anyone do a triathlon, I just think it's amazing. And I see you doing triathlons, I think you're crazy, but it's amazing that you do them and you love them. But is there anything about training for triathlons and going through that process, that you think has prepared you or helped you in any way, shape or form for this publishing journey?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think about failure. There's loads of things that have gone wrong for me in triathlon. I've learned about resilience, particularly in triathlon, like doing a long, I do these ridiculous events. I haven't done one this long for ages, but I've done extreme Ironman, which takes me 16 and a half hours. But there is something about...
crazy. My friend did that. He lived in Copenhagen.
I bet he did it in less.
No, we did one that went on for days. I was like, I don't understand why you're putting yourself through this. Yeah, it felt like it went on for days.
I think about resilience, working hard, about determination, about doing something and having to redo it. Loads of things. It's really, really helped. And then also if I am stuck with something, it means that I can go for a run or whatever, and suddenly things change perspective and things can be easier. So it has definitely helped.
What have you found most, I say, surprising about this side of the publishing industry as a thriller writer in comparison to?
I love the community. I love people like you, people like Adele Parks, Claire McIntosh, Ruth Ware. I've met so many of this brilliant community, and I've loved that. I've loved going to Chiltern Kills and Harrogate, and it's a wonderful, I didn't know that, and it's a really wonderful community to be in. So that's been fantastic and surprised me. Because I miss team, I really miss team at BBC Breakfast. And, I have my team at Headline, but it's been really, really, that's been lovely.
Because it's completely different being a writer when you have been part of a team in your previous career. Because even, when I think about when I, practicing as a lawyer, I wasn't doing it on my own. When I was employed,
no.
I had there was a whole team of us working together. And then when you move from that, being part of something, and then you're literally just you and your own in front of your laptop, it's a bit of an adjustment.
I've loved that though.
Have you?
Yeah. I think, because I know you ask people whether they're introverts or extroverts.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely kind of on the extreme version of both, if that's possible. Do you see what I mean? So obviously, you couldn't not be an extrovert if you were, to sit on that sofa and talk to all those people. You'd have to be an extrovert, wouldn't you? But I love when I'm sitting in my my kind of attic office at the moment, and I write here, and I also write. I've got a static caravan in North Cornwall, and I love those moments of complete just being in my own created world and not having to deal with all that pressure and all those eyes on and all the rest of it. So I'm absolutely between the two, and I think actually the honest truth is I'm much happier being the introvert.
Are you?
Yeah.
This is your happy space now.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I mean, it's kind of weird as well, because then you have to go back to the other extrovert space occasionally, and I obviously work in that space still. But I'm really happy here. I'm happy here in my kind of own version of chaos, and working with my own characters. So absolutely, I would say the sort of extreme version of both, if you can be that.
Yeah. Are you glad it's happened now? So like this part, this.
Oh, that's a really good question that somebody, I think my mum asked me the other day, did you wish that you'd done this earlier? I think what I bring to it now is a lot of life experience. And I wouldn't swap anything that I've done. I mean, maybe if I could started when I was 45, that would have helped, rather than having my first actual novel published at 56. But hey, but I had already started the journey. I was already writing Dare to Try then, so it's been a long time. It's not like I have been in this game for quite a long time already. So I don't wish anything was different, and I think I bring a lot to it now that I wouldn't have done before.
But I think that's a good thing for people to know, that this didn't just happen overnight. You didn't just sit down one Sunday and decide, let me just write a book. No, but I think that's what people can think when it comes to, I say celebrity authors.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did the air quotes. I hate that. But
you can do that. It's fine. No, it's not. That's not the case for me. For me, that is not. It's something it's been, and then even when, so Dare to Try happened. That was very funny, actually. Have you got time for me to quickly tell you the story?
I've got time.
So I'd been doing my triathlon, and I already knew that I wanted to write, etc., but I just wasn't writing because I obviously had a job on the actual television that took up loads of time. And I kept thinking, I should be writing this down, because maybe I don't really think they would be, but maybe somebody might be interested in this. And then I got an email, through a random email that wasn't the BBC, and came some random email from someone saying, "Hi, my name's Matt. I'm from Bloomsbury. I've been looking at your sport journey, and I'm wondering whether we'd be interested in you writing something about it." And I ignored it, because I thought it was some random punter who wanted to go out for a drink.
Someone sliding into your DMs.
And then, yeah, exactly. Given that I wanted to be a writer, a few months later, he emailed again. And I just thought, oh my gosh, maybe I'm being a complete idiot here. And I did a bit of Googling. And yes, it was Matt. And he was from Bloomsbury, and he was utterly serious. So that was amazing, because, it was what I wanted to do. He amazingly offered me that opportunity. And I would not have got that opportunity had I not been on BBC Breakfast. So it was incredible. So I decided to do that. And in order, I'm a planner, right? I like, I didn't just sit on the sofa just because I fancied being on BBC Breakfast. I've had a long time in journalism. I started making tea on the Today programme. This is, do you know what I mean? It's been a long time, this sitting on the sofa. Yeah. So, and a lot of different jobs over many, many years in lots of different places, right? And I just thought, when he asked me to do that, I was like, okay, so what do you want to, you want to be a writer, Louise? So this is a great opportunity. Say yes to that. And at the same time, somebody else got in contact saying, did I want to write a column for Cheshire Life? And I just thought, yes, if you're going to be a writer, write, just write. So I didn't quite know what the point is, but yeah, it's been a long, this is something that you need to practice. You can't just sit there, I don't think, and magically it happens. And I don't know, I've not read Dare to Try recently, and I'd love to kind of see how much my writing has changed. But I expect it has changed, and I can, in fact, even talking about it now, the kind of visceralness that you get in Fearless is definitely a move on from what I wrote in Dare to Try. And then hopefully I've moved that now into thrillers and into fiction.
But it's definitely there, that visceral nature of your books in isolation.
Thank you.
Because
thank you.
And I'm not just saying that because you're reading it, and especially because I always talk about Grenada a lot, because it's an island, and I've lost count on the amount of boat journeys I've done, like from the mainland to Carriacou, the small island, and we've done it in perfect weather, and we've done it when you've been going against the tide and it's pouring down with rain. And I've been on boats when what happened? I think it was during COVID. So the small hovercraft wasn't running. So they had us on a cargo boat. So I've been on a boat with cows and donkeys, crapping themselves because the sea is so bad. So I've got all these experiences. And when I was reading, especially the prologue, you read an introduction of
brilliant.
Isolation Island. Yeah, and I'm like, no, this feels like I feel like you were there. It doesn't feel
good.
It doesn't feel like you read it somewhere, if that makes sense. It feels this is someone who was there.
I wasn't on that boat, but I've been been on boats where I've been scared, essentially.
Yeah. I go to sleep though. That's what I do. My dad's always like, I don't understand you. I'm just going. It's my response to stress. I shut
Oh my
out.
gosh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I go to sleep. I'm not here for this.
Have you read? I'm just reading. Oh, absolutely addicted, by the way. The Last Passenger by Will Dean.
No, I haven't. I've got it, but I haven't got it. I haven't read it yet.
So that said, I've just come off the Queen Mary 2 on this amazing literary festival, which is called Cheltenham-on-Sea. And we went on the Queen Mary 2 from Southampton to New York, and it's a festival on the ship, which is incredible. Anyway, I'm reading The Last Passenger, and thank goodness I did not read it before I went on the ship, because it would have absolutely terrified me. And I'm so addicted that as soon as I get off here, I'm going to go do washing up, right? And I'm listening to it on Audible. I cannot turn it off, and it's utterly terrifying, but he does it brilliantly. But I just think that's so I love those books where go on, has it got a good what?
That's good narrator, because it's important.
Yeah, really good narrator.
Good narrator.
Yeah, good narrator. Yeah, absolutely. That's so important, isn't it? Do you listen to lots of books on Audible as well then?
You know, I didn't used to, but now I have, because especially someone I go walking in the morning and I need something. Like, I don't want.
I love the way you say at the beginning of the podcast, go for a walk.
Go for a walk. Yeah, go for a walk. That's the only thing. I don't know where that even came from. I was like, because you're either doing one or two things. You're either sitting around doing something, or you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Oh, I listen to it when I'm out on my walks." I'm like, go for a walk. But I'm listening to more audiobooks when I walk.
Yeah.
But and narrators are so important, because I was listening. I'm not going to say who it was. I was listening to one book, and I don't think I got through the first 5 chapters, because it was an American narrator. And then there was a Scottish character in the scene, and it was the worst Scottish character I've ever heard. And the thing is, this character, he was there for ages, and after I was like, no, I can't. I just have to.
So my narrator is brilliant. She's called Daphne Kumar, and she absolutely gets it. So there are 10 characters, and she has to do all of them, and she does Mac, the Scottish one, really well. And you're right, it's so important. And I actually narrated Fearless and Dare to Try. I did them myself, obviously, because they're my story. So that was fun. But I haven't done this one, because it definitely needs an actor to be able to bring all those different voices. That would be so awkward if I tried to do their voices. And then they bring something else to the game, don't they? Because Nico, who you'll know, I imagined him to sort of be of Greek origin when I wrote him, but actually in Isolation Island on the narrated version, he's French. So that's great. And it's totally fine, by the way.
I need to listen to it now. This is the thing I found about audiobooks. Yes. This is the thing about audiobooks. I found back in, when was it? The summer? Yeah, because my last one came out in May, so maybe it was around April. And I went to the studio to watch them record the audiobook.
I did too.
Yeah, but what I found was, it was lovely meeting, because the actress, she'd done my first 2 books she's narrated. So it was amazing meeting her. But then what I also found was that it sounds weird, but you're fully aware of like the structures of your sentences and how dialogue sounds, because it's completely different to what you write on the page. And then it's made me think about how I write dialogue in the next book. And I wouldn't have got really that if I hadn't. Yeah. And the thing is, I've listened to my audiobooks. I wanted to hear what it sounded like, but for some reason it was different being in the studio.
Oh, that's really interesting. I might do that then before the next one, because. And also that, it brings, I just think the audiobook brings another level to it, doesn't it? That you can't do. And there will be nuances that they'll do differently that you haven't maybe seen in the book as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And also made me aware, I'm like, you've used too many words, Nadine. You definitely could have used like one word and not 4 to describe this one thing.
Brilliant.
So before I go into your final set of questions, Louise, what are you working on next?
Oh my gosh. So about 3 things, which is not terribly satisfactory, but so basically I'm desperate. It sounds, it's like a visceral thing. I'm desperate to write again. Headline at the moment, they've got 2 ideas in, which are very different, and they are making a decision around those. And I get to meet my editor next week. And I'm hoping that she says,
yes,
go, Louise. I just want to, I'm desperate. It sounds so ridiculous, isn't it? But
no, it doesn't. No, you just wait. You just want to go.
Yeah, and also, ideas. Like it took me 12 years to find the right place for Lauren. So that was, and obviously I wasn't concentrating on it then, but and it had to be the right place. So I thought, so I put in two ideas, which I didn't think I could do. So I gave them. There's one that I've been working on for a while, and then somebody said, "Can you just do something slightly different?" So I just thought, oh no, again that whole thing, no, I can't. And then these 5 characters just came storming out of nowhere, and so I put in a proposal around them. So I don't know what's going to happen, Nadine, but I just want something to happen.
It's like you're itching to go. You just want to make a start.
I think that's good, isn't it? Because it's really that whole thing around publicity, and I've been I did massive talks about Fearless, also about Isolation Island. So I was so wrapped up in those. I think you do need space for the ideas to happen, and now this is the right time. I'm literally I want to start. So as soon as I meet her, the better, and hopefully I can crack on.
Yeah, because the ideas thing, people always say, where do you get your ideas from? And they can come to you in so many different ways. But when you're forcing an idea to come, so I was talking to my agent about standalone. I said I had a couple of ideas floating around in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm going to flesh them out a bit. But when I was forcing it, trying to build a story out of an idea, it wasn't working, and it was so hard. In the minute, I don't know what I did. I was doing something completely different, and all of a sudden I was like, oh. There it is. This is what I need to do.
Brilliant. So what do you want? What are you finishing at the moment then?
I'm doing my edits for book 4. So I'm going to get those done before Christmas.
Brilliant.
And then I'm going to have I don't know what well, yes, I do know what I've got to do after that. I'm going to plan out some more little ideas.
She's not saying no. I can see she's not going to say.
I'm being cagey. I'll tell you afterwards. Good. I'm being cagey.
Okay, fine. You tell me
cagey. Okay, right. So now for your question, because we already know about you being an introvert or extrovert. So I'm going to ask you, what has this publishing journey, it's not the journalism journey, but what has your publishing journey taught you about yourself?
Oh, what's it taught me about myself? That I'm way more creative than I thought I was. And actually, I didn't realise that I have hyper focus. I mean, I suppose I did have that on BBC Breakfast, but when I'm in writing, that is it. Nothing, literally, that somebody could come and ransack the house and I wouldn't notice. So that's brilliant, but also quite annoying when my poor husband comes back and I've created chaos because all I've done is just be with my characters all day.
How long does it take you to write your first draft?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. So I started in January and September, 9 months.
Oh, that's not bad.
Is that not bad?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No, I think that's good. I think actually good.
Yeah, 9 months, but it kind of got really at the end, you think, well, 9 months to me in my old job seems like a really long time, right?
Yeah.
And towards the end, it was just going down a motorway at 90 miles an hour with a dead stop at the end of it. And I honestly, that last night before I gave it in, the last week, I was up all night doing it, which is ridiculous.
It's that last week. It's a very strange space to be in. Because you do end up. I don't think I'm a hyper focused person, but I think in that last week of it has to be done, and I've got to meet this deadline. Everything else just disappears. And I always say, my hair turns into a mess. I just survive on Deliveroo and Uber Eats because I can't even think about putting a menu together for what am I going to eat. It's just easier just to go on an app because it's just all about the book and just getting it done.
It was absolutely bonkers. I mean, I think I did. I can't even remember, but it was just bonkers. I was up all night and then, trying to go over, do one more pass, but it's ridiculous. It's it's too late, Louise. You need to just give it in.
Yeah, there comes a point and I'm I can't see it anymore because all the words are just
you can't see
one.
It. No,
you can't see it. So you just have to.
Yeah,
I'm right.
I do remember. I remember, so doing all of that and then waking up at 4 a.m. I must have obviously gone to bed at that night, waking up at 4 a.m. and just these thoughts racing through my head and saying, I'm just going to have to get up because there's no point lying here. I might as well just get up and continue doing this crazy edit. But anyway, I don't know. So you do the show, and that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, and then what do you do when it's all over? Because I normally just go, right, I'm done. I'm going to. I leave my office. I close the door, and I'm like, I don't even want to see you. And I give it a couple of days before I go in and like start clearing stuff up. I just close the door on it.
I wasn't even doing it in my office. I was traveling because I was doing stuff for Fearless, and my husband had to basically come with me to drive me because I was going down to Devon or something, and it was like a 5-hour drive followed by another, and he literally had to come with me so I could be in the car going.
Oh my God!
Oh, next time let me not do that.
It will happen again. Because I always think, no, I always say to myself, right, next time will be different. I'm going to plan it differently. I'm not going to be at a point where it's that last couple of days and I'm like, I'm going slightly mad. But no, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens again. Okay, so what challenge or experience, and I always say it could be a good one, so challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most?
Oh, gosh, that's really hard. I did read that and I did think about it. I think, okay, this is not a kind of joyful story, but it is in the end. So, and I'll tell it very briefly. I have talked to people about this before. Just before my daughter was born, Mia, who's now 23, and she was born, and 6 days later, I had a burst appendix. And before, and it was, I've told the story before, so I won't not bore you, but I won't bother telling you again. But it was very extreme. I was extremely ill, so ill that I thought I was probably going to die. And I'm not making light of it at all, but it absolutely fundamentally changed me, that, because before then I was a very emotional person who used to get upset about loads of stuff. And after that, when you faced, literally, I just thought, I've got a 6-day-old baby and I don't think I'm going to make it through this. Once you've been through something like that, honestly, I'm so chill now. Like, I don't cry about stuff. I don't over obsess about stuff. I just think, hey, you know what? Every day is a bonus. So yeah. Quite a big deal. Sorry to drop that.
It's all right. We don't mind. That's what
I don't cry. Yeah.
You don't cry. You just keep it moving.
I don't cry. I'm like, so, is somebody going to die? No. Carry on.
Okay, so if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
You're doing great. Carry on.
Oh, that's a nice piece of advice.
Do you think? It wasn't what I was thinking at the time, though. I just thought, I was, setting out in journalism, working really hard hours, trying to make my own career, and that was hard. So yeah, I just think, you're doing great. That would have been nice. Somebody could have told me that.
No, that would have been nice. I think at 20, what was I doing at 25? Was I at law school? Who knows? I think so. But I think at that time when you're just starting out and you can't really see where it will go, because everything just seems to be like it's a lot and it's hard, and you just can't see the road, especially when there's other people around you and it looks like they're doing well. And you're like, why am I not there? Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't earning, I was really not earning a lot of money, and, things were pretty hard at the time, actually. So, yeah, I just like me to be able to go back. It's all right. Carry on.
You're doing all right, Louise. You're going to be fine. Yeah. So finally, Louise, where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
Okay. Best place is Insta. I really love Insta, actually. I do lots about the books and about crazy exercise, and that's mostly where I am. Sometimes TikTok, but Insta.
We'll find you on Insta. Did the triathlon thing surprise you? Like how much you enjoyed it and loved it and just wanting to keep doing it?
Yeah, I mean, that again, I'd given up sport for 30 years. So to come back to it was a massive joy, and is such a joy in my life. It's such a part of my life. Like today, I know I'm going to go for a run, and I'm beginning to make plans for next year about what adventures I'm going to do. But yeah, it's been that has been such an important part of being able to do BBC Breakfast, because that was my safe space away from all that pressure, and again around that kind of control thing. When you're doing sport, you're the one who's making the choices. You're not being judged by anybody or anybody else. I don't do it because of judgment. I just do it because it's fun for me. So yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Wouldn't change that for the world.
I'm asking you more questions, even though we need to be going.
Fine, sorry.
Like, how do you?
Sorry.
No, sorry. No, it's like, but you know, the BBC breakfast thing, and like I've seen you get up at like 3:45 in the morning. I'm like,
Oh, you're good, you are.
I do my research, but I'm like, the only time I was getting up that early is to go to the airport.
Obviously.
I don't want to be up at 3:45. But how do you stay motivated when you're getting up so early? You're doing that an intensive job, and then right, I'm now going to train for triathlons. Like, how do you say? Because most people be like, I'm just rolling over.
Because two things. Number one, because it really helped. Firstly, because it meant that when I was doing those hours, I realized quite early on that if I came home and went to sleep at like maybe 12 and slept till 2, I just missed the day. I had no daylight, like really basic stuff, which we all need, don't we, as humans? So it meant that I got home, I went outside and I did some exercise. And we all know that exercise makes you, personally anyway, it makes me feel better. It makes me sleep better. And then I started, I was having a really hard time at work. I was going through an equal pay battle actually as well.
Yeah.
And it just gave me an outlet for all that stress, where I was in a place where I wasn't thinking about all of that. I was doing something for myself. And so it was just enormously helpful. It really was. And, if I just come home, gone to sleep, woken up, I would have never have given myself the kind of mental space away from A, the job, and B, the things that I was trying to get done at work.
Yeah. I always say to the baby lawyers, don't let this one job. I know this is what you want and you've worked really hard to get here, but you can't, this is not all you are. I always say to them, you need to find something else outside of this, because it becomes all consuming and it's hard work and it takes up your day. And so you need to say daylight. You need to do other things.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? That is best advice. I think that's advice I give to my daughters, actually. I'm going to tell them that. Yeah, you just need to have something else, so that this is not your whole identity.
Yeah. And I think when you're younger, you think that it is, because you said you've worked so hard. Not even when you're younger, just at any stage in your life, you've worked so hard to get there and you feel like it defines you. And I'm like, no, you need to, I don't care if you just, I don't know, you've walked other people, your neighbour's dogs every Tuesday.
What a great idea.
If that's your thing, then make that your thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Louise, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for being part of the conversation.
Oh, I've loved talking to you. And as I said, I love your podcast, because I do think it's really helpful for people who are stepping into this industry, because so many of your guests give, really great information of what it's really like as well in publishing, and, that it's, it can be joyous and it can be hard. And that's really brilliant to hear.
And I think it's good to know. I said, I always learn something new after I've had a conversation. I'm like, I did not know that. I need to make a note.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.